I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: should DC pull the pin on their cinematic universe? Now let me start by saying first of all that it kind of breaks my heart to be making today's episode because I'm a DC fan. I was never a Marvel comics book guy. I was a DC guy, and in particular I loved Batman. I was so enamored with Batman as a young boy that for my fifth form art project, my portfolio of all the art you do over that year, I decided that I was going to make Batman my subject, and I was going to do all sorts of art, paintings and pictures and charcoal drawings of Batman because I was that obsessed with Batman. So it kind of breaks my heart to be saying this, but at the moment what we're seeing with the DC cinematic universe, quote unquote, I think it's just a slow motion train wreck, and someone needs to stop it right now before it just gets even worse and say, let's refocus, we need to stop doing this and shift in a new direction. Let's have a little recap. We had Man of Steel, which really sort of kicked things off for this new approach that DC were taking. Man of Steel, I liked that movie. I know people were critical of it, and one of the big things people said was, well, it's too dark. You know, Superman's not meant to be that dark. But people seem to have forgotten about the Brandon Roth movie, Superman Returns. Superman Returns was a lighter version of Superman, and it was closer in tone to the original movies, and guess what? It didn't work. It just didn't work. And so I get why they felt they had to go different on this and why they went darker. They owned it, and they really jumped in to the deep end of the pool with both feet. They didn't dip a toe in and a toe out. They just said, this is what we're going to do, and they committed themselves to it. And you've got to respect that. And I think in the end, they made a movie that was actually all right. I don't think it's as terrible as some people like to think it is. Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, because that is the movie that Zack Snyder made. So when I think of Batman v Superman, I don't think of the theatrical release. The theatrical release was the version the studios butchered. They took Zack Snyder's film, they chopped out 30 minutes, approximately 30 minutes of footage, which was key elements of storytelling, and then they released the butchered film. And then no wonder people didn't like what they see. But if you go and actually watch the Ultimate Edition, it is a better film, I would argue. It's not perfect, it does still have flaws, but I really like that film. And the reason I really liked that film was for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not trying to be Marvel. It is darker in tone, and I know people complain about that, but it's actually consistent with the tone of the source material, the graphic novel source material, those Dark Knight graphic novels. They are darker in tone, and it is more consistent and faithful to that particular tone. Number two, I love the fact that this wasn't just a cinematic version of a comic book. This is what Marvel does, is Marvel creates a movie version of comic book characters. What Zack Snyder did with BVS and the Ultimate Edition was he took a comic book story and he translated that onto the screen, and he presented a version of that on screen which looks and feels and is told the way a comic book would look, feel, and tell its story. And I really like that about that film. It's not perfect, but I think it is a film that's a lot better than its critics would give it credit for. Then it all just went down the tube. The whole thing fell apart from there. The Suicide Squad movie. This is a film that had so much potential. You've got a group of villains who are brought together to be superheroes. There is so much scope and interesting things you could play with there. There are so many concepts that you could toy with and build into that idea. And what we get was this version of the film. What went wrong? What was this? Then came Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman was better than Suicide Squad, but Wonder Woman is not a great film. People were saying, oh, it's more like Marvel in tone. Sure, it was more like Marvel in tone, but as far as movies goes, it was more like Marvel like years ago when they were just starting out. It's very basic. It's not a great film. It's not a particularly sterling example of filmmaking. It's more like a generic Marvel film from years ago. And the other thing I think that was so overhyped about it was the fact that it was a female lead character. And so this obsession with feminism became the big overhyping factor of this film. Then came Justice League. The less said about Justice League, the better, I think. Look, I feel sorry for them. You have this tragedy that sort of creates this creative disruption. You have two different creators who are very different in a lot of ways. working on the same project, and you can see where the differences start to happen. But even taking that into account, Justice League was just, it was weird. It's almost like I get the sense they were overcorrecting after all of the hysteria about Batman v Superman and all the complaints about darkness and all the rest of it. They just tried to overcorrect, and they overcorrected in a way that was just too far. In many ways, that moment with Henry Cavill and the CGI mustache disappearance, that's a great metaphor for this film. It's just a sloppy mess. And it doesn't look good, and you're not fooling anyone. We can see that this guy has got a mustache, and you've just munted up his lip to make it look different. And so it's like this film, we could see that things aren't working, and you're trying to convince us they are when they're not. Now, of course, there's Aquaman coming up, but I'm not excited for Aquaman. Are you excited for Aquaman? I'm not. It's just Aquaman, a whole movie about Aquaman. Yay! I mean, I remember watching the live-action Aquaman TV show from decades ago when I was a little kid, and you know, on a Saturday morning I was like, oh, Aquaman, that's kind of funny, and we'd all go to the pool and try and do the Aquaman swim that he did in that show, which is just hilarious. But none of us were going, oh, this is awesome, this is amazing, I hope one day they make a film about this. But we're going to get one, and I look at the trailers and I think, what's this going to be? It's just going to be another generic sort of, I was going to say geriatric, but it's going to be another generic sort of paint by numbers, tick the boxes sort of superhero-esque, action-esque type film. And hopefully it doesn't lose too much money on the way. The one film I am interested, though, in actually seeing is the new Joker movie, which is coming out. It's supposed to be next year. It's going to be released about this time next year. I am interested in that film. And the reason I'm interested in that film is because the initial, what we've been given, looks interesting and fascinating. We've got Joaquin Phoenix, who is a great actor, and I think if you're going to choose anybody to play a Joker, this guy could really do interesting things with what the Joker is as a character. And even more importantly, they've announced that this is just a standalone film. They've let the creator actually have his own creative vision to be realized, and it's being created as a standalone film. And this is what I think that they should be doing. I think right now they actually need to kill the cinematic universe right now before it dies an even more horrendous death and we all just watch this thing circle the drain in a really ugly kind of way. Here's their chance to fix that problem. I think that in many ways the Nolan Trilogy, the Dark Knight Trilogy, is sort of the template. It showed DC what was possible. You let a good creative director have his creative vision realized, but you don't try and make it anything more than that. You don't imitate Marvel and try and create a cinematic universe. You create a good story. Now, it might be a trilogy. They got a trilogy out of that, which is pretty good, but it could have just been one standalone film. And then what you do is, that's what you do. You focus on, let's take a character and let's let someone make a film about that character. They've got to pitch their idea to us. They've got to give us something good and original. And they take that idea and they stick to the basics and they do it well. It's not going to be wedged into some cinematic universe. It's not going to be about trying to sell you 50 different plot points from another movie that's coming out later. It's just this character in this film. And we don't even care about sequels. We're not going to set up for any sequels. We're just going to tell this story, tell it well. And then we'll see what happens after that. I think that's what the model is that they need to adopt. And I think the reason for it, obviously, is because their cinematic universe, it's non-existent. It's fallen to bits already. All that would be doing is ratifying and accepting the obvious. And the obvious truth here is that the cinematic universe that they've got is a debacle. So best to accept that now and actually shift away and focus again on just individual properties, individual films, individual characters, and let good creative directors express a good creative vision about that. You see what happened with The Dark Knight. There's huge potential there if you allow that to take its course in a good and natural way. The other reason why I think they should do this is because I think that the cinematic universe bubble, I think it's very close to actually bursting. It's just kind of like a property bubble. It's one of those things where you don't realize at the time when you're in it, as the house prices are becoming more and more inflated, you don't realize that it's about to burst and everything's about to sort of fall through a big giant hole. And I think that's what's about to happen with cinematic universes. Even Marvel, they are coming to the end of their cinematic universe. Once the Infinity War story is wrapped up, what happens then? They can't keep doing this perpetually, I don't think. And I think that Marvel are going to have to sort of face this question of reevaluating what the model is going forward. And so I think the bubble is bursting. Everyone bought into this. This was the way we were going to do things. We're going to create these cinematic universes. I don't think cinematic universes are actually the way to go. Interestingly enough, when you look at Marvel's cinematic universe, people call it a cinematic universe, but really when you think about it, it's actually one big story that they're telling. They're just telling it and spreading it out. They're giving you lots of information about various characters in that one big story, and they're given their own movie to develop that character. So it's not, I mean, obviously we call it a universe, and it is in one sense a universe, but it's actually really still one singular story. But I'm not sure that Marvel can repeat that same formula again either. I really do think the bubble is about to burst on this. So it would be far better for DC, I think, to get out ahead of that curve right now and say, you know what, we're going to lead the way here, and we're going to go back to telling good, solid, individual stories, individual films about individual characters, and maybe other characters will feature in there, but it doesn't have to be connected. It doesn't have to have this dark web of multiple tentacles and connections and setting up everything else. And every time someone blows their nose, it's like the butterfly effect for a movie that's going to happen in 20 years' time. We can just tell a good individual story. Like I said, it kind of breaks my heart because I was kind of hoping that the DC universe would work. Unfortunately, it hasn't. So let's get back to them good individual stories. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on PayPal or Patreon. There's a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you next week on The Daily Question.